This is my Petracucha project for AP Macroeconomics. I did my project on monetary policy and aggregate demand. The Federal Reserve is responsible for managing the national money supply and customizing the country's monetary policy to fit the needs of the economy. Domestic and foreign stock markets, exchange rates, and employment statistics help determine the direction in which our monetary policy needs to go. These are two important names and faces to recognize when dealing with the Federal Reserve. Ben Bernanke served as chair of the Federal Reserve from 2006 through 2014. Bernanke is best known for steering the American economy through the Great Recession. Janet Yellen took over for Bernanke in February of this year and is the first ever female chair of the Federal Reserve. Whether it's a recession, inflation, or stagflation, the Fed has tools that can help remedy the situation and re-establish health of the economy. Normally, the Federal Reserve has three tools at its disposal: open market operations, adjustment of the discount rate, and/or adjustment of the Federal Reserve requirement. The first tool available to the Federal Reserve is called open market operations. This policy is the least severe of three tools available to the Fed and involves the buying or selling of securities with the intent to either increase or decrease the money supply depending on the needs of the economy. The discount rate is the rate banks charge each other for overnight loans. Changing the discount rate is akin to breaking a bone and needing a cast. It's not life-threatening, but it's certainly not ideal. Raising the discount rate is contractionary monetary policy, while lowering it is considered expansionary. The reserve requirement is the amount of money that the Federal Reserve requires banks to keep in their vaults. Typically, this is 10% of each bank's total loanable funds. Adjusting the reserve requirement is more or less open heart surgery for the economy, and is therefore the most severe tool at the disposal of the Fed. This is the graph of demand equilibrium. This is when our monetary policy strives to obtain or maintain. The red line is aggregate demand, the blue line is short-run aggregate supply, and the green line is long-run aggregate supply. Price level is on the y-axis, and QRGDP, or output, is on the x-axis. This graph illustrates the impact of an expansionary monetary policy on aggregate demand. This type of policy shifts the red aggregate demand curve to the right, increasing prices at the same time as it increases output. This is a graph of the opposite monetary policy. A contractionary policy also impacts the red aggregate demand line on the graph. However, it shifts the demand curve to the left, decreasing prices at the same time as it decreases output. This is the graph of money market equilibrium. This is another state our monetary policy strives to obtain or maintain. The red line represents the demand for money and the green line represents the money supply. Interest rate is on the y-axis and quantity of money is on the x-axis. This graph illustrates the impact of expansionary monetary policy on the money supply. The green line representing the money supply shifts to the right, indicating an increase in the quantity of money in circulation. Subsequently, interest rates decrease. This graph illustrates the impact of a contractionary monetary policy on the money supply. The green line representing money supply would shift to the left, decreasing the quantity of money circulating throughout the economy. A contractionary policy would therefore increase interest rates. When the Federal Reserve uses expansionary monetary policy, it has the following effects. Aggregate demand will increase, as will the money supply and output. On the other hand, price levels and interest rates will decrease. The discount rate and/or reserve requirement will both be lowered. When the Fed chooses to utilize contractionary monetary policy, we can expect the opposite outcomes. Aggregate demand, the money supply, and output will all decrease, while price levels, interest rates, the discount rate, and/or the reserve requirement would all increase.